Let us understand the Unit-4 of Philosophical Perspectives of Education in Bachelor of Education course. The Unit-4 deals with educative process, understanding disciplines and knowledge. In this Unit-4, the first topic is educational aims, debates on the nature of the curriculum, selection of the curriculum, interest, discipline and duty, interest and effort. Now, before going to the details, let us understand what do you understand by an aim. An aim is a general statement of purpose or intention or a desired outcome. Likewise, educational aim is an anticipated and predisposed outcome to be achieved after a systematic instruction of a curriculum. And let us understand what is the need for and importance of educational aims. So, educational aims help in sizing up the means which are available for reaching the end. And educational aims suggest the order in which steps should be taken to get there. And educational aims also help us to act purposefully, to consider future events in the light of the past, and in acting intelligently with whatever the resources available. And educational aims, so since they are values as well, they would also furnish the drive or motivation to accomplish the task in hand and provide the basis for evaluating the task when done. And educational aims give direction to the educational activities. How should we go about these activities? And educational aims are necessary for effective school organization and management. Further, educational aims are useful for parents and general public for getting guidance about what will happen if they send their children to the school. And educational aims provide continuity and significance to education. Educational aims also help in making us use of educational resources economical and meaningfully. So far, we have understood what are the various purposes of aims of education. Now, let us understand the various sources and factors of aims of education. There are various sources from where we can carve out the aims of education. The first one is the parents' expectations. That is, the parents will have expectation that what will happen to my child if I send the child to the school. And next, coupled with this, we also carve out aims of education from the societal expectations because society also prescribes certain functions to the schools, and society expects that if the students come to the school, certain things must happen. So the society also helps us in carving out the aims of education. And next, political philosophy of the country also helps us to carve out the aims of education. And then the religion also, the religion of that particular country also help us to carve out the best available aims which may be achieved through a system of education. And in addition to that, economic policies of the country, that what the country wants to achieve after providing education to their younger generation. And next, the science and technological development and advancement. And not the least one is children's aspirations. Because children also have some expectations from the school that I will become something if I go to school. So these children aspirations also will help us in carving out the aims of education. And more than that, future needs and challenges also kept in our mind while framing the aims of education because we are training the children for the next generation. See, education is having long gestation period, and whatever the aims of education we carve out, those aims of education must be fulfilling the future needs and challenges which will be faced by the students after 20 years or 30 years. So, likewise, we have to frame long-term aims of education to achieve through the system of education. Now, let us see the classifications of aims of education. And if you see the classification of aims of education, we we can classify the aims of education like individual aims and social aims and synthesis of individual and social aims. There are certain individual aims and there are certain social aims, but we should maintain a balance between these individual aims and social aims. And the important aims of education are like as follows. First one is knowledge. That knowledge has to be imparted to the children. And next, harmonious development of personality of the children. And next, vocational aim, because after certain amount of education, the children must be in a position to earn their livelihood. And next, inculcation of integrity and probity. See, our country is a very large country, and we promote national integration out of the aims of education, and we also inculcate the probity among the students because an honest generation only can really render the quality services to their society and country. And in addition to these, we also have another important aim of education, that is inculcation of democratic values, because democratic form of political governance we have adapted. So we should also inculcate these democratic values among the students. And more importantly, the citizenship training. See, children, unless they are sufficiently trained to maintain the citizenship qualities, whatever the educational system that we provide to the children will not give much benefits unless we train the children with the citizenship qualities. And in addition to this, we should also develop entrepreneurial skills among the students through the system of education. Then only the students will be becoming industrialists and entrepreneurs, and they will become what you call and future entrepreneurs, so that they will start some enterprises and to give employment opportunity to several people. And in addition to this, change proneness and management. See, the aim of education should also train the children to manage the change and also to embrace the change. So, the change is the permanent quality. So, we should also train our children to embrace the change that may takes place. Now, let us see some of the aims of education which are prescribed by our educational commissions, starting from Kotari Commission and Mudaliar Commission, and even other educational commissions. Now, first, let us see the Mudaliar Commission in 1952-53 has framed the following aims of education to be achieved through the system of education. They are development of democratic citizenship, vocational efficiency, development of all-round personality, education for leadership. So these are the core aims of education prescribed by Mudaliar Commission. And next, the 1964-66 Kotari Commission has framed the aims of education as follows: education for modernization, education for productivity, social and national integration, and development of social, moral, and spiritual values. So these four important aims of education were prescribed by Kotari Commission. And next, the National Policy on Education 1986 also framed 10 core elements as aims of education to be achieved through the system of education. They are: number one, development of personality, respecting national symbols, small family norm, knowing Indian freedom struggle, promoting diverse cultural heritage, nurturing democratic secular values, equality among men and women, protection of environment, nurturing scientific attitudes, and removal of social barriers. These 10 core elements were prescribed by 1986 National Policy on Education. And now let us see the debates on the nature of the curriculum. Etymologically, the term curriculum is derived from the Latin root currere, which means a race course or a runway, which means a course by which one runs to reach a goal. So the curriculum helps the students to reach the goals. Curriculum is a means to achieve a set of objectives by providing a variety of learning experience to the learners. So curriculum is a means to achieve the aims of education, which we have just discussed while understanding the aims of education. And curriculum is nothing more than aims or values writ large in expanded form. So the curriculum, however, not only involves a theory of values, but as already seen, a theory of knowledge too. So curriculum also includes the theory of knowledge. And knowledge seems to fall into two categories. One is knowledge about the things, that is called as propositional knowledge, and knowledge of how to do the things, that is a cognitive action to be initiated by the children. And let us understand what do you mean by propositional knowledge. See, we have two alternatives. The first thing is knowledge of first principles such as sciences through mathematics and logic to metaphysics. And we may second one is we may organize the proportional knowledge in the curriculum around the questions we put ourselves. For example, how to express ourselves appealingly in both the written and spoken word. We have over the ages organized the famous trivium of grammar, logic, and rhetoric. And next, knowledge as a cognitive action. And we have two alternatives, even knowledge as a cognitive action. The first thing is that we may approach our task empirically. We may find out in what activities a person engages and arrange to give the learner cognitive experience in each of them. Since the number of such activities could well be a multitude, this approach is too bold. Second one is the better alternative is to economize the student's time and increase the scope of effective cognitive action by emphasizing theory, by grouping these activities under conceptual heads of what generally we call as different subjects. Now, curriculum, the subject matter divisions versus children's activities. Let us understand the subject matter divisions versus children's activities. First thing is curriculum with respect to the subject matter divisions. In the traditional view of the curriculum, the basic units are facts or skills which have been homogeneously grouped into various subject fields like mathematics and history. Such a classification is not only inevitable but highly useful. Since the mind cannot grasp the race experience in its totality, by analysis it breaks it up into different clusters of related interests. And next, as a consequence, the curriculum comes to be prescribed without much regard to the interests and points of view of the learner. It is believed that it is enough that the curriculum is backed by authority of the teacher, who is backed by the authority of the centuries. The subjects of the time honored divisions are learned only by one. And now let us understand the curriculum with respect to the children's activities. Since the student is living now, the curriculum becomes all the student's life, for which the school or college is responsible. It includes emotional attitudes and moral ideals, as well as the usual sorts of information. The curriculum concerns itself with the person. And the unit element in such curriculum is neither facts and skills nor subjects of instruction, but a novelly developing life situation experience is central. So the curriculum should be converted into life experiences of the child. Then only the children are eager to participate in that curriculum activities. And the curriculum uses subject matter, but it does not only consist of it, nor are its conventional divisions allowed to become barriers against meeting new needs. So the curricular division should not act as barriers against meeting the new needs. So curriculum must be elastic. And next, the curriculum to be thought of as a dynamic from this point of view, such things as facts, knowledge, information, subject matter, all becomes plans of action, ways of responding or reacting. All subjects are arts or skills, patterns of behavior. For many, activity tends to mean physical activity on the part of student, such as field trips or construction work with the hands or physically manipulating the environment. So the curriculum should also give scope for manipulating the environment and hands-on experience to the children. And further, those who have accepted the view of curriculum with respect to children's activities, they view this curriculum generally in protest against the sort of curriculum which is learned at desks, where quietness is a school virtue. But, so it would be an unwarranted inference to think no physical activity at all is involved in learning at desks. Even so, passive a type of learning as listening involves a very definite physical coordination for attentiveness. So even just by sitting at the desk also, they will be actively participating in the teaching learning process. The significance of the activity curriculum, therefore, if any, lies in the kind of activity rather than in its contrast with no activity at all. And further, in the abstract, activity may be boisterous and random as well as guided and purposeful. If the activity curriculum is to be known preferably by the more overt sort of activities, the justification therefore must be found in their greater promise of educational growth. So there are various educational activities which give this promise physical experience for promoting health in one instance, emotional outlet through the dance in another instance. So like this we can understand the subject perspective and children's perspective of the curriculum. Now let us see how can we select the curriculum. See, selection of the curriculum is based on certain key criteria. First thing is validity of the contents, self-sufficiency, interesting, utility, learnability, relevance to the life, and consistency with the social realities. The curriculum has to keep into consideration of all these things. And next, variety. The curriculum also should be having variety and comprehensiveness and feasibility and disciplines and duty, effort, flexible in point of time and to meet the individual differences. The curriculum must be catering to the individual differences that are quite natural among the students. Now, first, let us see how the interest can be taken into consideration as a criteria to select the curriculum. Etymologically, interest means inter est. So, this is the Latin word which means is between. Interest means is between. It is a word which establishes a relationship between things otherwise unrelated, as for instance, child and curriculum. In fact, child and curriculum are not having any relation, but interest has to be generated to pursue the curriculum. So that's the reason interest has to be taken as a criteria while selecting the curriculum. And if the curriculum that we select elicit interest among the students, achievement of aims of education will be successful. See, if we instill the interest among the children, we can easily achieve the aims of education. So, interest is a condition precedent to good instruction and learning. See, interest is a precedence to good instruction and learning. And further, interest is characterized as an emotional attachment of fascination, which is self active and propulsive. So, thus, human nature prefers to find its motivation in the agreeable rather than in the painful. So, the children's interest can be maintained only among the agreeable things, not painful things. And if the curriculum is interesting, the learner identifies himself with it. It literally becomes a part of himself. He lives it. In fact, the efficiency of learning of the curriculum increases directly in proportion to the interest. And if it does not grow out of the natural continuity between child nature and the curriculum, then each lesson must be made interesting. Certain lessons may not be interesting to the students. So, in that circumstances, the teachers have to make the lessons interesting. To handle gaining interest, curriculum material should be taken from the real life situations which surround the child. Indeed, they regard incentives drawn from local industry, agriculture, home, and community life. And so there is a need to take precautions while upholding interests of the children. If we teach only at the level of interest of the students, there would be a sizable fear that much of the social heritage would be neglected and the education would result in some sort of sentimental indulgence of the child whims. To make everything bow to the doctrine of child needs or interest reduces truth and goodness to the level of expediency. So, okay, interest of the children may be considered, but we should also keep in our mind the social heritage. This should not be neglected. at the cost of the what you call interest of the children. Now let us see the selection of the curriculum with respect to the discipline and duty, how this discipline and duty decides the selection of the curriculum. So training in discipline and duty is essential to preserve education from degeneracies that may creep owing to emphasis given to interest of the students. See, we interest is one of the criteria. It's not the whole of the criteria. So we should also take into consideration the discipline and duty. The duty and discipline thought to be imperative to control the conduct of the students in the light of relatively long-range interests and well-established standards. See, the duty and discipline have to be taken into consideration while prescribing the curriculum. In the long run, the duty and discipline will be taking ahead than the interest to keep the children on the track. And learning prosecuted from this point of view will override immediate interest whenever it is inconsistent with the aims of curriculum. In consequence, will come a renewed emphasis on the hard work. So interest is not sufficient to keep the children's motivation, so they should also be trained in hard work. And this discipline and duty will train them to engage in hard work after a certain age. While the discipline projected here will probably have to be initiated through external control by teachers and parents. The ultimate objective will be to reach the point where the child will be free because he can discipline himself. So, to some extent, the teachers and parents will be training the children or driving the children to cultivate this discipline and duty because after some period of time, the children may be losing the interest. So, that time, the parents and teachers have to instill the values of discipline and duty to continue in persuasion of the curriculum. And discipline can be defined as the power to choose a course of action and to persist at it dutifully in the face of obstacles and distractions till its deferred values have been realized. So, this discipline is a kind of dutifulness. So, you cannot leave the curriculum in the middle. So, till you achieve your goals, till you achieve the objectives of the curriculum, the children need to be trained to maintain the discipline and be dutiful. And next, let us see the another dimension of selection of the curriculum: interest and effort. See, learning is rarely going to be effective only with interest. Students need to put efforts as well. See, effort is an exercise of the will. See, unless there is a will, the children won't put their effort. Effort represents the strain one feels in doing distasteful tasks. So, though certain tasks are distasteful of the curriculum, the children need to continue their efforts. At such moments, one seems to need to make an extra exertion of voluntary attention to keep steadfastly at his task. Viewed in this light, efforts seems to be the antithesis of the interest. Because interest, if you the children are having interest, voluntarily they put their efforts. If certain things are distasteful of the curriculum, then the children need to maintain their sincere efforts to fulfill the curricular expectations. Interest furnishes the motivation for the agreeable, while effort is relied upon the when doing something disagreeable. So, though certain things are disagreeable, the effort of the students must be initiated to fulfill the disagreeable tasks also. And further, if a child does not put forth effort in his studies, he has to use his power of will voluntarily and persistently do the studies with perseverance. This perseverance also should be cultivated by the children over a period of time, otherwise, they may lose interest in the middle of the pursuation of the studies. It takes some practice from the side of the students and also takes some weeks or months of time to acquire mastery over the skill. See, this effort may not be cultivated by the children in short period of time. Children need some perseveration so that children continuously put their effort till they achieve the tasks. And so, interest and effort should go a long way in tandem style. Once this is achieved by students, they do not find studying and learning as burden. That's the purpose of effort. And exerting effort without interest would make education boring. See, certain in the middle, interesting activities also should be introduced. Otherwise, the education will become boring. And being interested without the need of putting forth effort merely make education entertaining. See, just only based on interest, if you provide the learning experiences without taking into consideration of the effort to be put by the children, the education will become mere entertaining. As a result, students would not comprehend what reading and learning experiences offers, and they may not be in a position to internalize the knowledge for betterment of their lives and society. This kind of students merely carry educational qualifications without any worthwhile knowledge and skills to be executed in their works of life. So, unless the students are trained to put the efforts persistently, then they cannot get maximum benefit out of the curriculum. So, though they fulfill certain amount of education, they carry qualifications, but they may not acquire any knowledge and skills if they did not put any effort to learn those skills and knowledges. And another view saying that interest and effort are unopposed to each other at any point. When obstacles slow down the learner's progress and almost distract him from the accomplishment of his project. So it is purpose or interest that recruits the necessary extra exertion or effort to remain steadfastly at his task. See, after a certain period of time, even effort also will not make the students to continue his studies. So there, the purpose takes the lead. The purpose of education should be informed to the students. Then the purpose takes the students to complete the curricular tasks. He does distasteful things because his purpose shows that he cannot otherwise continue along his chosen line of self-development. If the purpose of education is not understood, then the students may not show interest to continue the studies. But if the purpose of the education is made clear to the children, then they are going to continue their efforts. So it is the purpose or interest rather than a sense of the disagreeable that stimulates effort. So ultimately, instead of effort, the purpose will stimulate the students. Indeed, it is often claimed that young people will put forth much more effort in proportion to interest than they will in proportion to irksomeness. So, like this, the curricular inputs have to be selected by taking care of the interest of the students and the children. If the children do not show interest, the teachers have to create interest among the students, and to some extent, the interest will lead the children to pursue the studies. But after that, the children also should be trained to put their efforts because unless they put the efforts persistently, they cannot fulfill the curricular inputs. And after a certain period of time, even effort also will be slowly reduced, and that time the children must be informed about the purpose of education because the children must be informed that if you continue this education to certain extent, then your life is going to fetch you so many things, and this purpose will propel the children towards completing the education to a significant degree. So, like this, the selection of the curriculum has to take into consideration all these elements that will make the children to propel themselves to complete the curriculum. So, these curriculum framers have to keep in their mind the interest, effort, and purpose of the curriculum and the purpose of the education. Then the students will definitely continue in their studies to a certain degree of education.